Hello, my name's Jane Habner from the Student Learning Support Service, and in this video we're going to be talking about case studies and how it is we respond to a case or a scenario that we've been given as an assessment task. I want to take a very quick moment to just acknowledge that I am coming to you from Kaurna land, a land that was never ceded, and I pay my respects to the traditional owners of these lands and waters. Quick qualifier before I start talking about case studies. In this video we are focusing on the type of assessment task where you are given a case or a scenario to respond to. You're given some details about a particular scenario relevant to your field of study, looking at the type of real life work situation that you might face in your professional practice, and you're being asked to often respond to some specific questions about the scenario or the case. Sometimes students are asked to write up a case study, write up a particular case or scenario that they've experienced or they have observed. That is not the focus of this video. So that's one qualifier, and another quick qualifier is that the requirements and conventions of case studies do differ across disciplines, and it's really important to be thinking about some of the specifics of your discipline. This will be quite a generic video, so do bear in mind that there are certain things you want to think about very specifically. If you're unsure, you speak to the academic staff you're working with in your discipline. So why case studies? Why case studies as an assignment? A case study is a really valuable learning opportunity because what it does is allow students to think about the complexities of the real life work situations that they might face in their professional practice. You know, sometimes it's really easy when we're sitting in a classroom, in a lecture theatre, in a tutorial room, we're just reading all of our theories, all of the readings that we've been given at home, on the bus, etc. They can seem fairly abstract or conceptual. What a case study allows students to do is to take all of that material that they're engaging with, that they're learning, and begin to think about it in their professional practice, often their future professional practice. So it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to make those connections between all of the theory that you have learnt and the real life practice that you're working towards. It gives you a great opportunity to begin to think about how it is you would respond in a particular scenario, how it is that you would take everything you've learned and actually apply it in whatever profession it is that you are moving towards. So why a case study? For that exact reason, because it simulates an authentic professional situation as best it can. The details in the scenario, in the case that you've been given for your particular assignment, are designed to reflect and represent the type of situation that you will face. You will face in your particular profession. So what they do is give you the opportunity, and your marker the opportunity, to assess your ability to identify what some of the problems might be, identify the issues in the scenario, in the case, and how would you respond to them? How would you deal with them? How would you treat them? It also, of course, assesses your ability to link the theory and the practice. Everything you've been learning into that real world situation, and that certainly allows both you and your marker to assess your critical thinking skills. You hear critical thinking as a term used an awful lot at university, and sometimes students feel that in itself is quite abstract. Well, you know, what's all this about? This is exactly what critical thinking is all about. Being able to analyse, evaluate and apply all of the information that you know and that you have and that you've learnt to, in this instance, one of those real-world professional scenarios. So what we're going to do is just go through some of the steps of how to tackle a case study assignment. The first one, not surprisingly, is reading. Reading the case closely. Get a feel for it, get an understanding of the scenario that you've been provided. You're highlighting the main points or the issues or the problems. Then you're focusing really closely on the assignment details. Quite often with a case study, the assignment details that you're given have some questions in there, some specific questions you're being asked to address, to answer. So you want to read them really, really closely and then reread the scenario, the case that you've been given, and trying to link as best you can the information in there with each question, how it is you'll be able to draw out the details from the case that you need, beginning then obviously to have a think about how it is we'll begin to respond. Not surprising to anyone, thinking is the next step after all the reading. What we then want to be doing is thinking about, okay, well, what were the actions that were taken in the scenario that you've been given? Were they the most appropriate ones? Are there any consequences that have arisen from the actions that were taken? Or are there consequences for actions that weren't taken? Were there things that weren't considered in the scenario that you've been given? Is there information missing from that scenario that you might need to be able to make a full assessment of the situation? And of course, you might be thinking about, well, were the actions taken and procedures taken in line with existing policies in your profession that you've been engaging with, the theories, all of those tremendous ideas that you've been presented from experts in your field, do they all seem to be reflected in the details of this scenario? If you don't know what these are, you don't know the policies in your area, you don't know the theories that you might be needing to engage with, you want to be looking at all of your recent topic content, what's been presented in class to you, what is being discussed in those essential or required readings that you've probably been given. If you need more information, you're then beginning the research process of your own to find out more information about this particular area that is relating to the scenario that you've got. But as I said, the really key thing with a case study is the opportunity to apply everything that we've learned in the classroom to a real-life professional situation. So in that sense, we're focusing very much here, step 3, on linking, using your knowledge of relevant theories and policies, professional documents, guidelines that might exist, and applying them to this particular case. This is a really, really big tip for any case study assignment. It might be that you have a scenario that is really focusing significantly on one or two particular theories that you've been engaging with throughout your semester of study in a particular topic. You're not being asked to write an essay on these theories. You're being asked to apply the ideas in the literature that you've been reading. You're being asked to apply them to this particular case, this particular scenario that you've been given. So that is something to keep in the forefront of your mind the whole time, linking everything that you've learnt in class to this particular scenario, this particular case. Whether it's a case study assignment or absolutely any assignment that you need to do, you're going to spend a large amount of your time on the planning stage, because planning is the really important stage in the process. Keep returning to the questions that you've been asked to address. Don't get sidetracked. As I say, you're not being asked to write an essay on a particular theory. You're being asked to think about a particular theory in relation to this scenario, particular scenario that you've been given. So don't get sidetracked. When you are planning, you might want to perhaps write out a linear plan and use some headings to represent each of the questions that you've been asked in your assignment details. Have a good look at your assignment details, your marking criteria or your marking rubric to make sure that before you start writing, while you're planning, that you're going to be able to cover each element of the assignment, each part that you've been asked to do, each question that you've been given. Once we've done all these things, we get to the easy part of writing the assignment. Poof, let's move on. This is where it is important to point out again that conventions and requirements for case studies will differ across disciplines and also across assignments within disciplines sometimes. What's important to remember though is that the academic writing conventions will still apply. So it might be in your assignment details that you are given some information on how you might structure or format your assignment. Might be that you're being asked to keep a structure very similar to an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Quite often with a case study assignment though, the assignment details specify there isn't the same need for the introduction and conclusion as we would see in something like the traditional essay. But there are some fair assumptions you probably can make. Make sure that you do use full sentences, avoiding dot points or bullet points, and you're still using well-formed paragraphs. Topic sentence explaining what the paragraph's all about, those supporting sentences exploring the idea, introducing the literature that you need to introduce, and then making clear what these links and these connections are. I would say that generally for the most part you do want to avoid bullet points or dot points unless you have been specifically told you are able to use them. If that information is in your assignment detail, fantastic. If you've asked the question and gotten a yes, a bullet point is fine, fantastic. Forge ahead with using them if you want to. But if you don't have that information, do avoid them. It is likely we're still looking for full sentences and really clear paragraphs. Academic writing conventions still applying. We're still referencing any literature that we're introducing as we normally would, and making clear, obviously, what the links between, in this instance, the case, the literature, and then making really explicit what those links are. Just a couple of things to remember before I finish up. Make sure that you refer to the case throughout your answer. Don't just focus on a particular theory or a particular policy that is relevant. You are talking about those things in specific relation to the scenario or the case that you've been given. The other big thing to remember, you're doing this assignment so that you can demonstrate that you can link the theory, everything you've learnt in class to your professional practice. We're keeping that very much at the forefront of our mind. And what we're doing is looking really closely at our assignment details and making sure that we're asking all of the questions we're answering all of the questions that are asked of us. A couple of questions that you can ask yourself and your assignment once it's done. Does your answer demonstrate that you can respond, or how it is you would respond to this particular situation in your professional practice? That's at the key heart of the case study assignment, showing that you know how to, or just demonstrating how it is you would respond to a real-world professional scenario in relation to everything that you've learned. Of course, we do want to then make sure a couple of things are in place. Have you read and understood and introduced the relevant literature, and have you referenced it correctly? Just because we're beginning to move our thinking into a professional scenario doesn't mean we're not following all of those academic conventions. We're referencing everything as we need to. And have you clearly explained your knowledge and your reasoning? You've got your case study, you've got the details of the scenario, you know the theory, you know the policies you're engaging with, you're putting them together. Make sure you clearly explain why it is you're applying a particular action to this scenario. Articulate your reasoning behind the steps you're taking or the response that you're giving. Right, I wish you the very best with any case study assignment that you have, and I look forward to seeing you again.